Hi everyone, and welcome to our 9th tutorial in the series of tutorials on how to build a website in R using the Blogdown package. In the last tutorial, you learned how to make changes and modifications to the existing external project, and in this tutorial, you're going to learn how to make changes to the existing internal project and to add a new one. So as you can see, I'm in my R studio, and the first thing we always do is that we call in the Blogdown library. And now we always serve the site, and this function will allow us to view the current version of our website in the viewer pane and to see the changes that we make as we go. Okay, so let's quickly just navigate within the navigation bar to blogs to see what we have currently. So as you can see at the top, we have the title, and here we have the internal project, and below the external project that we created in the previous tutorial. So right now, we actually want to change the content of this project. So if you click on it, you will be able to see that it has a default text that is given to us by the academic theme. So let's start to make changes. Go to the File tab and navigate to Content, and then click on Blog. If you didn't watch the previous tutorial, this was named before project, and if you don't really understand what I'm talking about, I encourage you to check out our 8th tutorial to see the changes that we made, so you're on the same page. Okay, click on Blog and navigate to the internal project. This is what we're going to change in this tutorial. As you can see, you see that you have two different files, the index file and the featured image. Okay, now click on index. So going through the top, this is where the page is defined, and below those 3 dashes, you see all the text that we saw when we clicked on the internal project. So because I wanted to add an R code into my internal project, and this is what's so nice about this idea of being an R user, but also building your website within R, is that you can easily add chunk of R code into your text. So to do that, the first thing that we have to make sure is that we have the right extension. And right now we have a .md, and we want to change that to R Markdown. And we can do that within R. Just click here, just check this little box and go to rename and go to the extension and add a capital R and click OK. And R already takes care of that and creates an R Markdown file for us. So as you can see, the colors changed a little bit, and it created an R Markdown for us. Okay, so there are a few things that we should look at in the part where the page is defined. The first thing that we're going to change are the links, and to just show you where those links are located, go back to the Viewer tab, and when you scroll down, within the internal project, you see that you have that Twitter follow button, and you also have slides. So we will get rid of the slides for this tutorial, and we will change that button to be not directing us to Twitter, but to GitHub. Okay, another important thing is located on number 13. This is the summary, so it's basically a description of your internal project. And obviously on line 16 is where the title is defined. We should make changes here as well. Okay, let's start by the content of this internal project. And to do that, navigate to line 23, where this whole text, the default text, starts, and just mark everything below and delete. And here we're going to write our text. So I'm just going to write one sentence, but obviously yours is going to be much more elaborated. So maybe I'm going to teach my readers how to create a ggplot. So this blog post will teach you how to create a ggplot using an open source data set called penguins. Okay, so this will be the text that appears at the top, but let's say that I want to also incorporate a chunk of code. So as we always do within our Markdown, we add a chunk of code, which is now empty. And I'm going to say, actually, we'll start by install packages. And I'm going to allow my viewers to know which package they need to load to execute the same code. So I'm going to use the package Palmer Penguins, and this is an open source data set that you can play around with. And I'm going to use that to teach my readers how to create a ggplot. So I'm going to ask to install this package. And I'm going to, after I executed this line, I'm going to comment this out. And that is because our Markdown will complain about install packages when it needs to incorporate that in the text for our blog. So just comment out the install packages because it cannot execute that within our blog. And just start by library and then the Palmer Penguins library. Okay, and also, obviously, we also have to install the ggplot library. And now we can be sure that they have the right libraries installed and loaded. Okay, so let's say that I'm going to start by allowing my readers to use the head function. So let's say I'm going to leave a little comment saying, let's take a brief look at the data set using the head function. Okay, and now I'm going to write head, and I'm going to use the penguin package. Sorry, the penguins data set. Okay, and obviously, as we always have in our Markdown, you can see the execution below. Okay, now I'm going to add another comment saying something like, now we can create the plot. Okay, so let's say I'm going to use a scatter plot, and I'm going to obviously use the penguins data set. And on the x-axis, I'm going to use that bill length in millimeters. That's going to be on my x-axis, and on the y-axis, I'm going to have the depth. Okay, and let's say I want to go even further and teach them how to group the scatter plot into some feature, which is going to be the species in this case. So it's going to create a scatter plot that would group the dots according to the species. Okay, and obviously I'm going to say geom point to create a scatter plot. So when we execute that below, we will see how it looks like. And when we save everything, all the changes that we made, then when we go to the internal project again, we will be able to see below all the code that we inserted, and obviously also that text that we entered before. Okay, so this is great, but now remember that I told you that we want to get rid of the slides, unless you really want to, but just I'm going for this tutorial to teach you how to change one of the buttons. So let's scroll up again and go to the links, and the first thing we're going to do is to change from Twitter to GitHub. And then obviously the name is going to be different. Maybe I'm going to say GitHub material. And the idea is that people will be able to click on that button that will redirect them to a GitHub page that describes that open source data set. So to do that, obviously, we have to insert a URL. And I have this URL already opened on my computer. So here is the GitHub page that explains about the Polymer Penguins dataset. And all I have to do is to copy this URL and navigate back to my R, and on line 11, just to paste it. Okay, let's write a brief summary for our internal project. Let's say a ggplot blog, which is not very informative, but obviously yours is going to be different. And maybe the title is going to be ggplot. Okay, so let's save those changes and take a look at how it looks like. Great, so now we have a different title and we have a tab that has a GitHub link attached to it. And obviously you can see that I forgot to take out the slides. Let's go quickly and do that. That's on line 12. Just comment this one out and save it, and you'll be able to see that this slides button just disappears. So we have the title and we have the GitHub link and we have the post below. So one last thing that we could also change that would be nice is the image. So I already have an image that is saved on my desktop, and I'm going to teach you how to change the current one to the one that that makes sense. Okay, so navigate to where your R project is located and then go to content and to blog. And of course, we're working on the internal project, so click on that. And as you can see here, you have a JPEG file, which is the image that currently is presented. So all you have to do to change it is to get the desired image and to just paste it. And don't forget to rename it to featured, because this is what our website will recognize. So I'll just insert that, and I'm going to ask to replace it because I already renamed it to featured, and it complains obviously that it has the exact same name. Okay, so hopefully when we go back to our R, then we'll be able to see that right now we have this cute image of the penguins that I downloaded from the vector stock, and below we have our blog content. Okay, so this is looking really nice. And the last thing that I want to teach you is how to create an additional internal project. And to do that, that's fairly easy as well. You just leave RStudio again and go back to the blog folder. And here, what you have to do is exactly what we did in the external project, is to copy this folder and to paste it below. And again, just for consistency, I'm going to call it internal project 2 because this is going to be the additional project that I created. Obviously, this will have the same content as the internal project that we currently have, so you'll have to use your knowledge and modify that according to your needs. But for now, this is going to just be as an example. And when we navigate back to our RStudio, then hopefully we'll be able to see, let's try to navigate to blogs again. You'll be able to see that we have not 1, but 2. No, we have 3. So this is again a good point to use your skills and use the stop server function that stops the server, and then to serve the site again so that it updates everything that we just created. Let's navigate back to the blogs and see that we have now 1 and 2 and 2 for the external one. Obviously, we always want to see our changes in a bigger screen, so we can use that little tab here. And if you go to blogs, then you will see that right now you have 2 external ones which were created in the previous tutorial and 2 existing ones that we created in this tutorial. You have a different title, a different summary, and a GitHub material button. Let's click on that link and look at the post that we created. Okay, great. That looks really nice. Obviously, there are more things that we can change, and I encourage you to go into the file, the our markdown file that we just created, and look at the different lines and see where you can change even more things. But for now, this is, I think, enough. And we always finish by informing GitHub about the changes that we made, and we do that by staging here at the Git tab at the top, and we always commit. We make sure that everything that we did is checked, so that all the changes that we made will be updated in GitHub, and we have to leave a commit message to ourselves, which is going to be internal project changes. Okay, so now we're ready to commit. And when we see that this button changes to close, we can be sure that we can close it and we are ready to push. Okay, again, the close button appears and we can be sure that we can close this. And now we can, or each one of you can go ahead and view the changes that you made in your actual website. So this is it for this tutorial, and I hope you learned a lot and that you enjoyed the content of this tutorial, and I really hope to see you again in the next one.